Do you guys want to move up here? So you're closer?
I'm scared of you.
I'm not scary.
She's really good.
She is.
No, they were here last time.
Awesome.
It was fun. Do you want to move up?
Should we move up? Okay.
So our class today is emotional intelligence in real estate transactions. So do any of you guys remember when you first got your license and you were scared about everything that was happening in the transaction? Like you wanted to control every single aspect of it?
Yep.
And it was just stressful? Were you never stressed out, Steve? Or you just
No,
like,
just
whatever?
I just came from being law enforcement. This is
Like, this is easy.
it's pretty black and white. Fill in the blank.
When I got my license, I would say for probably 3 years, I was stressed about every detail of the transaction. It was like, if somebody was upset, I was upset. I was trying to fix everything. But that was kind of my nature, to try and fix everything.
I'm still doing
So,
that.
are you still trying to do that? Still trying to fix every single little
Yeah.
detail? Is it
You
working?
just hit escape and you switch tabs and then the YouTube videos there, so you should be able to play from there.
Okay, and then can I just pull that back up?
And then you'll just,
Oh,
it's up
okay.
there, and then you'll
And then
go
come
back
back
here
here,
and hit
sure.
slideshow, and then you go.
Oh, okay.
Yep, because it's already sharing, so you don't have to stop or do any of that, just hit
Okay.
the tabs.
Thank you, Chelsea. What would we do without Chelsea, guys? She is literally the best. All right, so I was just telling several of the people here that I had to use some of these things before I even came into the class because I was feeling nervous, right? That's an emotion, nervous. And I don't know if we ever get over being nervous when we speak in public. I'm not sure. Maybe some people do, but I still get nervous, so I had to tap and do some things to help clear some of that out. But anyways, let's talk about emotional intelligence for a minute. And Steve thinks this is not a thing.
We'll
But
see.
I do want to point out that in the Presidio back website, we have emotional intelligence software. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
How many of you use it?
I've done the like daily emotional thing that it's like a little, Steve actually got me onto it.
Right,
It's a little test.
Steve's the one that showed me
Yeah, okay.
this too, so I think he knows more about this than we.
He just
he
doesn't
does.
want to take credit for it. That's it.
Yeah, it's actually a super awesome tool in the back office that you can go in if you're having a rough day, and it will like give you little tips on how to get through it. So, okay, emotional intelligence. Who wants to read this for me?
I can only see some of it. There's
Yeah,
some
their
words missing.
stuff is on the side. Just guess what those words are.
Okay.
You can minimize
Go
that if
ahead.
you want.
There you go.
Okay.
Is that better?
I'll read it.
Okay.
Emotional intelligence is the most often defined as the ability to perceive, use, understand, manage, and handle emotions. People with high emotional intelligence can recognize their own emotions and those of others, use emotional information to guide thinking and behavior, discern between different feelings and label them appropriately, and adjust emotions to adapt to environments. Definitely not me.
Definitely not. Thank you for reading that. Okay, after reading that, how many of you guys would say that you have a high EI? You have a high emotional intelligence. Steve, Stacy, Ludi, is that how you say your name?
Ludi.
Okay, awesome. That this is something that you learn. Now, intelligence, like the measurement of actual book smarts, is something that most people don't learn. They are actually kind of born with an innate intelligence, and then you can work hard to raise it, right? But some people are just born with a really high IQ, right? This is actually great because you can learn how to do this. But did you know that people are born with emotional intelligence as well? Some people are way better at adapting to emotions, and then if you have any sort of learning disabilities, that will hinder your ability to have emotional intelligence in a situation. So people with Asperger's or who are on the spectrum at all, they have a really hard time adapting, so this type of information is really important, especially if you're working with somebody on the spectrum, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But being aware of how your client is, and if they're good at emotional intelligence, will tell you how important it is for you to be able to adjust to what they're feeling. All right, so why is this an important skill to have? After you read that definition, why do you think that would be important?
So you don't overreact to every little thing and it actually gets worse.
Right, so you don't overreact to everything.
Yeah.
Have any of you guys had a transaction where you actually caused some of the problems through your emotional response?
We're not gonna admit it.
Yeah, don't raise your hand, but maybe just think about it. Like, ooh, I probably could have handled that a little bit better. I know that I have. I'll be the first to admit that, you know, when I was really young when I got my license, so there were some mistakes that were made, and that's okay. That's okay. So, anyways, it's important because the skills that you get with emotional intelligence actually guide and lead your leadership ability. So to be a good leader, you need to have good emotional intelligence. Self-awareness, the ability to recognize what's going on with you and your own emotions. Self-regulation, how to regulate your emotions. I'm sure if Steve was in law enforcement, he had to learn how to regulate his emotions pretty well, right? Yeah, because you probably had a lot of different experiences where you could have overreacted, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. And then social skills. I mean, if you have really high emotional intelligence, then you're going to be able to adapt to social situations, right? And that's just a skill that we all need to get along in this world. Empathy, considering how other people are feeling, that comes in really handy right now in real estate with your clients, with other agents, with everything that's going on in this competitive market. Having empathy is really important. And then motivation, being aware of what motivates you, what motivates your clients. All of these things are important. Why else would you want emotional intelligence? Think about maybe like family situations or friends or other co-working situations. Any ideas of why you would want to have emotional intelligence?
I think it helps you be able to connect and to be able to have all of that with your clients or with anyone in particular.
Right.
So I think it just really adds to that, you know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Your ability to connect to
Ability
people.
connect with them.
Yeah, perfect.
I read a book once. They were investigating the survival rates for people in disasters,
Mm-hmm.
and they talked about this whole thing about how people who can see beyond the immediate disaster, the ones that survive earthquakes and floods and plane crashes and all these other things, because they can sort of detach from that and think more linearly. And they're the ones that can help others get through that as well. So,
Right.
it's a kind of a survival mechanism if you learn how to do that well.
Yeah, 100%. It helps everybody in a situation lower their stress level, right? And whenever you're in a stressful situation, which sometimes real estate transactions can be very stressful, right? You want to be that professional person that can help lower the stress level instead of heighten it, right? So let's give some examples. So there's high emotional intelligence,
Wow.
which is
That's a current event.
We're going to talk about that in just a second. High emotional intelligence would be you're the person that can adapt to the situation, help lower the stress levels, right? Low emotional intelligence would be you're the person that's going to raise the stress level of the situation. Okay? So let's talk about this current event that happened Sunday night.
So perfect.
Yeah.
I actually do not like to make people examples, okay? But this was all over the news. So it's like,
Still is.
yeah, it's just
Chris
all over the
Rock
place.
handled it like a champ. He went on to tell 2 more jokes after the fact. Like, okay, that
Exactly.
just happened, but here's what I'm gonna do about it.
Yes. So for those of you that don't know, maybe online or in here, at the Oscars, Chris Rock was hosting, and he told a joke that was not in good taste about Will Smith's wife. And Will Smith, his initial reaction was to actually laugh and clap, but then he saw the look on his wife's face, and it made him very upset, and he actually went up and slapped Chris Rock while he was hosting the Oscars. He like full on slapped him. And I
That was a joke.
like, yeah,
And
I
was
know.
like,
Good idea.
Right?
So did I until he sat down.
And then he sat
started
down
yelling.
and started swearing and yelling obscenities at Chris Rock. So, in this example, Will Smith had very low emotional intelligence for the situation, right? Like, I'm not saying who was right or wrong with, you know, the jokes and all that or anything, but I'm saying that his response was a reaction, and it was not an appropriate reaction. It was a very low emotional intelligence. That doesn't mean that Will Smith is not intelligent. It means that in that moment he got triggered. We're going to talk about that. He got triggered, and instead of sitting back and being like, ooh, I am triggered right now, I am like really upset, and sitting with himself, he just immediately reacted. He did fight or flight response, and he went up and slapped Chris Rock. Now, Chris Rock had super high emotional intelligence, and he actually did not do anything back to him. He didn't say anything upset. He just went on with the show. He actually didn't like freak out, and he's the one that got slapped and assaulted on TV. You know, so that was really interesting to watch as I was preparing this class. I was like, ooh, look at this, a perfect example of low and high emotional intelligence. So let's give some examples of when things got tense during a real estate transaction. Can any of you guys think, even online, if you raise your hand, and if somebody can help me, if somebody raises their hand to let me know, just in case I miss it. Think of a time when something got tense in a real estate transaction, and let's discuss how it went. Steve.
So typically, it's the inspection report comes back,
Okay.
and that inspector can blow up the transaction or not, and give a reaction to the buyer, or after the appraisal, if it goes one way or another.
Right. Okay, how many of you guys have had an inspection come back and ruin the transaction? All of us, probably, close to all of us. Yeah, so let's talk about what an inspector can do. I don't know if there's any inspectors online, but as the professional real estate agent, you're the middleman, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can actually prep your inspector on what to do in that situation, okay? I actually have an inspector that I love because I can tell him up front, hey, these buyers are already nervous. I want you to be very careful about how you approach it. Give them the information, but don't give them any emotional response with it, right? So as the professional agent, you can actually tell them how you want them to approach your clients. Have you guys ever thought about that? You can be the prep person. So go into it with the thoughts, and I had one inspector tell me that he can actually tell them anything good about an inspection report, because he can say, well, this other house I just did had this and this and this. So he can actually spin everything to make it in perspective about what's on the market in that price range. So just make sure that you're the one that's handling things professionally, and if something comes up in the inspection, help them see the good side of it, right? Help them see, okay, we have these handymen, we can look at these options. Don't be that one in the transaction that's like, this is the end of the world, and now you guys can't afford it, and what are you gonna do, and we better go to the seller and freak out, and be the one that kind of brings the positive spin to the situation so that everything can work out. Because that's the goal of everybody, right? Everybody wants it to go to closing. People don't want it to all blow up. So, okay, what other examples of when things got tense during a transaction?
Well, I'm coming more from the property management side, and I get slammed on social media if somebody doesn't like what I did with their security deposit. So they'll get all their friends to go in and say how bad we are and how we only care about money and we're this, that, and the other. And I will frequently, I just have to go on and say, hey, thanks for reaching out. We like any feedback. Our records indicate you've never actually rented with us. Can you give us an example of a time when this, we affected you personally, something along those lines, to just try and deceive, just diffuse all of that. One girl got on in response to somebody else's slamming, and she had rented from us like a year ago. So I went on, hey, this is what we did with your deposit. We actually gave you a break on a couple of things, and you never complained a year ago. What triggered you to respond this way now? We're happy to correct it. So it's always trying to diffuse that and let people know that, because I've seen responses from other companies that say, well, you did this and you did that and you did this and it wasn't our fault and all of this. So we just try to deflect some of that.
From what Ludi just said, how many of you guys would think that she has high emotional intelligence?
But you know what? I've been doing this a long time, and I did not have that when I first started 15 years ago in property management. My manager was always telling me, you gotta be nicer, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, So
Right.
it is, like you said, it is a learned process of trying to think twice about what your reaction is. And I don't always get it right. Just had one
Right.
this past week that I could have handled a little differently.
Right, because we all have those triggers that make us defensive, right?
Right.
We all get on our defensive and like, don't be writing bad things about me, and you could say bad things about them, right? We all get those moments. And so the whole point of learning emotional intelligence is to step back and take a second to breathe before you react, right? So that you can say, okay, how can I respond to this that keeps me in my power instead of giving it away from them? Giving away to them. Because when you act in defensiveness, you actually give your power away. So when you stand in the power of like sovereignty and I've got this and keep your cool, that's when you keep all of your power in you. So it sounds like you have learned some amazing skills.
Yeah, I've been at it a long time. So.
Okay, so what are some things you can do to make sure that next time you get triggered emotionally, you don't react at someone else's expense? So we're gonna go through like some tips and tricks because you guys are all gonna probably get triggered in real estate, whether it's your client getting mad at you for something. I'm gonna give you an example of this, okay? I was working with my aunt. How many of you guys worked with family in real estate? Yeah, all of us, right? My aunt was very emotionally charged the whole entire transaction because she was in the middle of a divorce. And she didn't want to sell her house, but she had to. So it was just an emotional transaction the whole time. And she would call and yell at me all the time, just full out scream about everything that was going on. There was nothing I could do about it, right? It wasn't like it was my fault that she was selling her house. But she would just call and complain, and I would sit there and I would listen for a few minutes. You know, there's a boundary between how much you're going to take with people yelling at you. But I would listen because I understand emotions, okay? I would listen, and then I would tell her, I am really sorry that you're feeling this way. Do you know what that does immediately? It diffuses, okay? You enter it with compassion, empathy, and love, and it just diffuses the situation. So for example, if Ludi got a comment online, if she started out with the first sentence, I am really sorry you're feeling this way. What can we do to help you resolve this? It diffuses their defenses immediately. Love always diffuses things. So I would start with that, and then she would continue on for a little bit, you know, badgering and things, and then she would tell me to call the other agent and yell at them. Now, in those situations, what do you do? Does anybody have a good idea? If somebody asks you to do something that is really not ethical, you know, they shouldn't be asking you to call and yell at other agents. What do you tell your client? Any ideas? Yeah.
I say, you know what, I'll just take care of it and you don't worry about it.
Perfect. Such a great response. Any other ideas? What could you do if somebody's telling you to do something you don't want to do? They're kind of bullying you in a transaction.
I just go to Steve's office or Stacy's, lay on the couch and bawl, that's all I do.
You go and cry, my client wants me to yell at this person, I can't do it. I love it. You're addressing your emotions, which is really important in a healthy way with other people.
It's cheaper than therapy.
Yes. So yeah, saying, you know what, I'll handle this. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it's important for us to acknowledge where they're coming from, right?
Acknowledge
And
where
just
they're
say,
coming
look,
from.
I understand where this is coming from.
Right.
And I am happy, to handle this from here on out, and I will be more than happy to contact, the agent. But I don't know that I go into, yes, I'm going to do that, you're right, I should call them and yell at them. No, I think,
Right.
just understanding where they're coming from and acknowledge that to them, and that you'll handle it.
Right, perfect. So one of the best ways I found is saying, do you trust me to handle this situation? Do you trust me? Just ask them. You hired me, do you trust me to handle this situation? And hopefully they'll say yes. Hopefully they'll be like, yeah, I trust you. And it kind of calms their nerves, because whenever you bring up trust as well, it calms the nerves. Say, I've dealt with situations like this, my brokers have dealt with situations like this, and we will get through it. And just calm them down. And then say, I'm happy to approach the other agent, and I'll do it respectfully. So make sure that they know that you will stay professional, okay? You don't want to give them any sort of indication that you're not gonna be a professional in the situation, or that you're gonna do what they say and yell at somebody, because that's not helpful to anybody. And they might lose a little respect for you if you actually listen to them when they were in a moment of, distress. So, okay, let's talk about this. Emotional intelligence during the real estate transaction. Remember your role. Okay, a lot of times we can actually get in the way of the transaction. I know that Jen says this, like, don't get in the way of the transaction. You're the middleman, so your job is to transfer information, right? You can actually do that not emotionally. You can transfer information, you can give them the options, lay them out for them, and let them choose. So in this particular transaction I'm talking about with my aunt, she wanted to push the transaction back 2 weeks to the closing date. And so I called the other agent and I asked them how they felt about it before I got emotional about it. Because I could have very easily been like, no, we can't do that. That's not fair for them. They've already been waiting so long. This has been just a total catastrophe because you're always making stuff up, right? I could have went crazy on her, and instead I just said, okay, I will reach out to them. So instead of stepping into my own emotions about what was happening and how it wasn't fair for them, I just called the agent. I said, how does your client feel about pushing it back 2 weeks? It's very simple. You just ask them, because guess what? They actually didn't even care. They didn't mind, right? I minded. It was my own emotion that cared. How many of you guys have had a situation like that where like you approach and all of a sudden you're like, oh, they didn't even care, and that was me bringing it up? Did you have an example?
Yeah, I was actually handling a transaction just this last year, and we got an appraisal back that was $10,000 lower than what the contracted price was, and I was worried.
Oh, yeah.
Calling the other agent to tell him, and the moment that I told her on the phone, she's like, I had already talked to my clients about this, that it might happen, so we're completely fine, we're gonna come down to that price. And I was like,
Perfect.
wow, that was easy enough, but I had that anxiety inside of me.
You got stressed about it,
Yeah.
right? And did you even need to get stressed?
No.
No. That's what's so great, is sometimes you can give your clients the benefit of the doubt. A lot of times they won't even freak out like we do. They won't even like stress. They'll be like, yeah, I was expecting that. Especially if you educate. So how that other client educated, hey, this might happen, and be aware, right?
Yep.
So if you educate, that will help the emotions in the transaction go a lot smoother. If you start out with, hey, this is what I'm seeing lately, this is what's been happening with appraisals, this is what's been happening with inspections, expect this when you make offers, then anything that goes better than that is just a plus, right? Anything that goes above and beyond that is like, oh, yeah, great. We didn't have to deal with that. So, okay, so remember your role, that you're just there to transfer information. You don't need to get emotional. You can let them tell you how they feel. You can transfer it, you can work the information very neutrally. Address your own emotions so that you can do your job. So Clint, in that example with the appraisal, I know you are very emotionally intelligent. You
Thank you.
probably sat with how you felt before you made the phone call, right?
I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you didn't just immediately, oh no, the appraisal's bad, I'm calling right now and I'm gonna work through this right this minute.
Yeah.
No, it's really important to take a step back once you get information. Make sure that you know how to address it before you make all the phone calls. Okay, if you're going to have to make a difficult phone call, make sure you're in a space of neutrality before you make it. Because you can actually cause more problems with high strung emotions than if you just went into it neutrally. So, provide your clients information and let them choose what to do, right? I provided the agent, hey, my client would like you to extend the closing 2 weeks. And then you let them respond, okay? Try not to put all of your feelings, all of your desires, if you wanted it to close sooner, all of whatever you're feeling on them. Just let them choose what they want to do with the transaction, okay? And then don't get worked up over nothing. Like Clint said, he didn't have to get worked up about the $10,000 difference in the appraisal because they didn't even care, So if you don't have to get worked up, don't get worked up. Wait until you have all the information. All right, connect with your clients. Make sure you know what they want. How many of you guys sit down with your clients before you take them out to see homes or before you list their home and make sure that you're very clear on what they are wanting? You guys do that? Good job. I'm sure you guys are great at that, but you want to make sure that you're not putting your own thoughts in their head. So make sure that you know exactly what they're wanting, what they're expecting, and then if you need to adjust expectations, you can do that, right? If they're like, we want $1 million house for $500,000, then you need to sit and adjust expectations, right? Listen to them throughout the transaction. If they're feeling frustrated, make sure to check in and say, hey, how am I doing? Is there anything else I could do to make this better? Is there anything else that I can do to help you feel like I'm here to support you? Just check in and listen, ask questions, be their support. And then feel what they are going through with buyers right now. Do you guys have buyers that are frustrated? Yeah? How, do you guys have any situations where you felt really bad for a buyer? Yeah? Any specific examples?
That there's no more first-time home buyer, you know, the average as far as the home prices have gone up, and that's a lot, and they're down paying, what they're having to compete against with people coming in with cash paying over.
Right.
Asking, I think that is really, really hard.
And
Yeah.
a lot of people buying second homes to then rent out as Airbnb. There's a lot of investors, you know, and not even just investors, but just regular people buying out homes as they're just sitting on the market as Airbnbs, and that's a little frustrating.
Right, yeah. It is really, really hard for first-time home buyers right now. I have a buyer right now that's just so frustrated because we've made several offers and he doesn't have that type of earnest money to put down. He doesn't have this huge down payment so he can go above appraised value. You know, he's just a normal first-time home buyer, good, hard-working guy, and he can't get anything. He's very frustrated. So what would be something that I could do in this situation to help him keep the hope that he could get something? You guys have ways to encourage your clients or help them stay hopeful during our current market?
I just remind him it only takes one.
It only takes one.
It only takes
Beautiful.
one person to say yes, so don't give up, because if you give up, then that yes is going to someone else.
Right. Yeah?
One conversation I have with my clients is that, you know, over my years of doing this, all of my clients end up exactly where they're supposed to.
That's what I was gonna say.
And so that's something that I've had multiple conversations with people, because they make these crazy offers and they feel like they're going crazy on these offers, going, you know, 20,000, 40,000 above in some cases, and not getting them. And I just have to have that conversation, like, that must not have been the right one.
Right, right. That's perfect. I always tell my clients there are angels in real estate and they're always placing people where they're supposed to be, just because that's, you know, my personality. What I deal with on a daily basis is more of that divine energy. And I've seen it over and over again that people end up exactly where they're supposed to be. So just encourage them that you're gonna end up exactly where you're supposed to be. So no worries, we'll just keep looking. We just haven't found the right place yet. You know, maybe it's coming up next week, maybe in a couple of weeks. So, all right. What about emotional intelligence with other agents and professionals? How can you guys address being professional when you talk to other agents that are difficult? Have you guys ever dealt with a difficult agent? Anyone?
Yes.
Crystal?
Yes.
How did you deal with a difficult agent?
Mostly I just try to put my client's perspective into their eyes and then talk through it. Like, I'm like, okay, we need to work this out because we both want the same thing, right? Which is our clients to cross the finish line. So we need to figure out together how to come to some kind of solution where it's a win-win for both of us, not just your clients winning or my clients winning.
Perfect.
It's hard for me to have calm conversations because I definitely speak from emotion. I'm just, my heart and soul is in everything I do with my
What?
clients. Oh, 100%.
Crazy right now.
No.
So,
Crystal, we
and
all
I
love
swear
your
like a
heart
dang
and soul and
sailor,
your
so
personality.
it's very hard not to use swear words.
Are there ways to be passionate without swear words? Yes.
I don't know. I haven't found out yet.
Okay, we'll get into how to deal with that wonderful passion you've been given. It's a gift in a minute. But when you're working with other agents, it's important to not get too passionate where you're swearing at them, right? But I love that you said win-win and talking to them, collaborating, saying, hey, we both want this to happen. What can we do to make it work, right? It's beautiful. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. See, put yourself in their shoes, speak with respect, make sure you don't belittle them, call them names, anything like that. Hopefully, you know, some people, we've grown with bad habits and we tend to call names or things. I've been called names by agents before, and just see it for what it is. Hey, that's okay, they're not in their right place right now, but you speak with respect. You be the one that leads with respect. And I have gotten several notes over the years from clients and agents who said, I can't believe how professionally you handled that situation. So be that person that gets the thank you at the end that's like, wow, you were very neutral and professional during that. So, and then the golden rule, yeah, treat others how you want to be treated, right? Yes, Clint? Go ahead.
One of the things that I really like to do before I make those calls, because there's some difficult
There's
people
some
out
difficult
there,
ones, for sure.
is I always think of them doing the absolute best that they can in the situation. And that helps me to kind of see the situation from their point of view. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's me that's being difficult, I realized. And so it helps me to kind of give that internal perspective of, okay, I need to chill out
Right.
a little bit.
You're giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, they're doing the best they can with the clients they have, with the situation they have, and with the knowledge they have, right? Some people really don't have high emotional intelligence. They really don't. And maybe they're learning. Maybe they're going through coaching. Maybe they're changing. And that's perfect. Maybe be their example, right, of how to do it. So you can also just be an example to the other professionals in the industry and raise the bar, like our motto is, raise the bar for other agents and clients to see that we can do this respectfully. Yeah?
Yeah, I totally agree, because I think what's most important is just like with your clients and stuff when they're frustrated, just like your aunt, you have to listen and you have to acknowledge them. So I always just let them go. Like,
Yeah.
you say what you need to say and we'll work through these. But during that, like, really genuinely listen and show compassion and be like, okay, here's the plan. I like to sit down. I know you kind of see what's coming on your deals, like you really do. So I'll sit down in the morning and I'll be like, okay, what could go wrong with this and what's the solution? If it comes up, then I'm already like, I've already figured that out. Like, and so then you can say, okay, hey, here's a couple ideas that I had. What do you think about these? Will any of these work for you, or which one do you want to choose? You choose your words, but which one do you want to choose from, or whatever it is.
Right.
And then it's not like you're calling and attacking or not listening or acknowledging or don't have a solution. You're already listened. You acknowledge them, help come up with some solutions, they choose it, and you move forward.
Perfect, perfect. I love that. She's already pre-planning, coming with ideas of solutions to things that could come up during the transaction. She's being proactive in it so that if something comes out of left field, she's like, oh, I already came up with a solution for that, or, keeping her calm. So that's perfect. Has anybody online been saying anything? Have I missed? Have you guys noticed?
Pop up.
Okay. All right, guys. We're going to talk about general emotional intelligence now, and so that you can deal with your emotions in a transaction. So every one of us, no matter how perfect we are, everything is a transaction. So if you are working with a client, that's a transaction. If you're working with an agent, that's a transaction. If you're working with your kids, that is a transaction, right? Everything is a relationship. It's an exchange of energy. So we're going to talk about just general ideas of how to keep your cool with family, with other relationships, with clients. And no matter how much you've learned about this, you can always learn more, right? Because all of us get triggered. Nobody's perfect yet, at least I'm not, but these are going to be some great ideas to help you kind of flow the energy out so that it goes more smoothly with all of your relationships and transactions. So, okay, where do emotions come from? Let's talk about this. Have you guys ever thought, where do my emotions come from? Yeah? Clint, where do your emotions come from?
Just past experiences.
Past
things
experiences.
that have happened throughout life.
Yep, things that happen throughout life. That's great. My husband, he actually is on the spectrum a little bit, and so he does not have very high emotional intelligence, and he hates emotions. So he always talks to me about emotions are, I hate to say this, but emotions are of the devil. That's what he always says. He hates emotions. He thinks that they ruin everything. Emotions ruin everything. So I've had to talk to him a lot about the gift of emotions. Okay, so we're going to talk about where they come from, why they're there, how they're going to serve you in
Why
your
do
life.
you think there's more men that are like that than women? For sure, my husband definitely is like that.
Oh, we can get into the the yin and yang of energy and everything.
It's
I
like
could give
they
you so
have
much
to be
information.
manly and they can't have emotions.
Right.
Good
Did you
job.
know that
I think
the
there's a lot of
most
it instilled in them as a little
Yeah.
kids.
they're just more
You need to be strong, you need to not, don't cry, and boys don't cry, or boys are tough, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of that just
learned behavior, right?
yeah.
Expectations that we
Yeah.
put on men and boys in general.
Bless
Be
you.
strong, be tough, don't cry, get up, keep going. And then girls are more coddled and cuddled and all that stuff, right? But there's a ton of reasons why men are just, they
Some
don't
of
like
it has to do
emotions.
For physiological reasons.
Yeah, left and right brain, right? If you're more logical, you are just going to not like emotions as much. You're gonna have a hard time, like, really tuning into your body and your emotions and wanting to clear it. Women can be like that too. I know a lot of women who are more logical than emotional. I know men that are more emotional than logical, and that's fine. But it does seem like men are less emotional, except men actually tune into anger more than women do. and if they're really healthy men, they'll tune into the anger and they'll use it to catapult their creativity. So there's like really amazing emotions with men. We can go way far off track with that. We go way far off track with the emotional response in men, the gift of it, because it really is beautiful. So, okay, emotions. It's actually energy in motion. So it's just frequencies, right, that come through you. You'll feel them. They'll trigger different things in you. And if you address them, they'll keep moving. You want to keep them moving. You don't want them to get stuck. You don't want to shove them down. You don't want to depress them. That's how people get depressed. Okay, you want to let them move. Okay, so we'll talk about how to do that. But emotions come from your thoughts. Okay, and that's the general consensus in the life coaching world. So I'm trained in life coaching and energy work, which is really funny because in some ways they're very dualistic. Okay, life coaching is all about controlling your thoughts, and there's a circumstance and it's neutral. And the thought you have about it creates your emotion. It's the whole model of how you have an emotional response, right? But in the energy world, it's all about what's already in you that's creating the emotional response. So there's not just one way, and I'll tell you that. If you have like a coach that's saying, you're just responding to this because you think this way, that's not true. Like you honestly could just have different triggers inside of you that you don't even know, okay? So there's thoughts, there's limiting and empowering beliefs, there's past experiences, like Clint said. Unprocessed trauma in your body will trigger a response. I personally think that's what happened to Will Smith. I think he had unprocessed trauma in his body and he reacted out of PTSD and he went up and slapped Chris Rock. So I saw the situation with different eyes because I looked at him and I was like, dang it,
Yeah.
Will, go get some help and process that trauma so you don't react like that, right?
Have you guys read his book? Because it's incredible.
I
And
haven't.
He talks about this, which is so ironic that he gets up and did that.
Right, and then imagine the shame he
Imagine
feels,
the shame.
right?
Oh, yeah, big
sad.
time.
It is sad, but it's just an example of how that can trigger something. He probably did not consciously think, I'm gonna go up and slap Chris Rock now, right? No, he probably just had an emotional
His
response.
apology on Twitter seemed pretty sincere though.
Yeah. So, okay, lack of information can cause emotional responses, just like Clint mentioned before. When he didn't know how somebody was gonna react, he got emotional, right? Boundaries that have been crossed. So when you have an expectation and somebody crosses your boundary, that can cause an emotional response. Met or missed expectations, gains or losses, like when somebody passes away, or when you lose like your hope in something. Or you can have happy emotions, right? When you gain something, say you just sold $1 million house and you're just super excited. That's an awesome way to have an emotional response. And then habits. A lot of us just have emotional habits that we haven't not learned how to break. And we've learned our emotions mostly from our parents. Because most things we learn are from age 8 and below because you're halfway in a hypnotic state. So you learn a lot of the stuff from when you're little. So if you have emotional responses and right now you're feeling a little bit ashamed of how you respond to some things, don't feel ashamed. Just know, hey, I probably learned this. It might be generational. I can unlearn it. But it does take a little bit of effort, you know. So, but be easy on yourself.
I just have a question for you. How do you
Yes.
handle someone that is always negative, no matter what? Like, even if it doesn't even call for someone to be negative, someone will just say, well, you know, that they just find something. Because I always try to help with that, but this person, it just always seems like someone's out to get them. They don't like them. They're just.
There's a cloud in every silver lining
Yeah.
for that person, right?
A cloud in every silver lining. Okay, dealing with
That's a major
difficult,
emotion.
negative people, right? So first of all, most of those people don't want help, so don't try to give them help. The best
They
way
like
to
it
actually
misery.
help them is to give them compassion. But you can only go so far, right? I've dealt with a lot of chronically negative people. So if you have to be around them, say their family, child, spouse, something like that, the best thing to do is recognize your own boundaries. Be like, I can listen for 10 minutes. Be very clear, okay? Say, I'm happy to listen to you for 10 minutes, and then I need to go and do this. Okay, just be very clear with how much you can handle. And then an energetic way to deal with a negative person is just to imagine, this might sound weird, but this is energy work, guys. Imagine that you have mirrors around you facing out towards them. So you can be a mirror to them, okay? So they're gonna look at you, but they're gonna see themselves. And that way they'll be able to reflect like, oh, that probably wasn't very positive. They'll actually be able to mirror back. You don't need to judge them at all. You can just put up mirrors and be like, I'm just gonna be here as a mirror for them to see how they're reacting. Now, if you get defensive and you're like, actually, there's this and this and this way to look at this positive, that defeats the purpose. You have to be a neutral mirror, okay? And then that opens the door that maybe they'll ask, how can I change this? I don't like that I'm like this. If they ask, yay, then you get to go crazy giving advice and whatever you want, right? But to deal with that is boundaries with how much you can handle. Don't judge them. That's also like drop your expectation of how they're gonna act. Just drop it. Just be like, this is one of my favorite practices with negative people. Write down everything you expect of them. Like, I expect that they should be more positive. I expect that they should be kinder. I expect that they should have a better attitude. I expect, right? And then look at it and be like, oh my gosh, I have a lot of expectations on this person and how they're supposed to be. And then tear it up and say, I dropped those expectations. They can be who they need to be. Okay, does that help?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
any
you.
other questions about that?
I
Okay,
have a question.
yeah. Who's talking, Steve? No, Tyler. Okay, go ahead, Tyler. We're not able to hear you.
Shoot, he's in the intergalactic line.
Comment.
Did you hear, Crystal? You're in intergalactic land. Could you write it in the chat? Darn it.
Charlie Brown.
I don't even know how to see the chat on here. Do you guys know how to see the chat? Anyone that's done?
I'll let you know when there's something in the chat.
Oh, thanks, Steve. If you see Tyler write something, share it with us. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna go into this next phase of understanding where your emotions came from, right, is important so that you don't judge yourself. That's the whole point of it. Understanding it lets you stop judging yourself and shaming yourself or other people. Okay, so just don't judge them. Understand that their emotions came from somewhere. There's a trigger inside of them that's being hit. It's being pinged. They get hit with a frequency, pings their trigger like a ping pong ball, and alarms go off, okay? So we're gonna talk about how to be grateful for your emotions. So this is for all the men out there that think emotions are stupid and they're the end of the world, right? We can be grateful for our emotions, okay? They're an integral part of who you are. They're actually the part that connects you to your heart, your desires. So if your emotions have been hit, it just shows something you wanted is not coming forward. So be grateful. Just be like, oh, thank you for showing me that that actually didn't happen the way I wanted it to. It's just showing you what your desire was, right? Emotions are there to give you information about who you are, okay? So take it as, oh, this is just showing me that I'm really sensitive. Do I want to be that way? If you do, say, yes, I do. Or if you're like, okay, I'm seeing I'm really sensitive. Do I want to change that? You can change it. It just gives you the information so that you can decide who you want to be. Does that make sense to you guys? Do you have any questions about that? I always think my emotions. So I'll give you an example. This morning I was nervous before I came in here, and I sat in my office and I was like, thank you, nervousness. I love you. You're showing me that this is new territory, that I've done this once before in this classroom, but this is new territory. I'm feeling a little bit scared. Let's address that together. And I talked through my emotions. I talked to them like friends. They are not my enemy. They're there to show me that they're actually just there to protect you. So if your emotion's telling you, like, be nervous, it's just because they want to keep you safe. They love you. They're like your very best friend. They want to keep you safe and happy. So just love them and say, I know you want me to be nervous because you're scared for me, but I'm okay. I'm safe. We're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. So just treat them like your friend. That will really take the judgment way down on yourself. And then as you learn what they're there to teach you'll actually transmute all of your emotions into love. And that's the coolest part about emotions. You can actually change every single emotion, whether it's anger, hate, frustration, revenge, whatever, you can transmute it into love by acknowledging what it's giving you. So, you guys have questions about that? Okay. All right. Now, when you get an emotion, this is how you deal with your emotion, okay? So before you make the phone call to the other agent, before you make that phone call to your clients, maybe before you go and cry on Steve's couch. Just kidding, you can totally go cry on Steve's couch. That's a great way to deal with emotions, actually. You need to feel it, okay? So you're gonna take a deep breath. Everyone can do this right now. Take a deep breath. And ask yourself, what am I feeling? Everybody can feel that right in this moment. You can, whatever you're feeling, just say it in your head. What am I feeling right now? You could be bored. You could be invigorated. I don't know. Whatever you're feeling, just to acknowledge it and then ask, where is it in my body? Ask yourself where it is. So it could be anywhere, in your stomach, in your chest, in your head. And then point out what the texture and feeling of it is. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it tingly? Is it spiky? You know, just describe it. You know what this does is it gets you in your body and out of your head. It gets you inside of your body so that you can feel the emotion so that it can move. Because remember how we talked about it's so important to get it to move and flow? This is how you do it. You have to acknowledge it's there. And when you acknowledge its existence and validate it, it will most likely leave. Okay? So just get into it. Feel it. And then usually just describing it like that will actually start to lift it and it will move itself. But if it doesn't, then you can start to do some other things that we'll talk about. But make sure when you feel it, say you feel like hate. Okay, that's one that has been judged in community a lot. Hate. Say you're feeling hate for something. Do not judge yourself or your emotions as good or bad. That defeats the purpose and it actually fights against yourself. So just get into the emotion, be like, okay, I am feeling hate. It just is what it is. It's there. What does it feel like? Where is it at? Okay? I can't see what that last one says, but I think it's exactly what I just said. So, all right. If that emotion doesn't move just by feeling it, which a lot of times it will because that's validation and it will just start to move out, then this is when you get to use some other tools. Have you guys seen the emotional scale before? Any of you guys? Yes. One person? Two people? You seen it? Okay, the emotional scale can be super fun. We're going to play it out right now with a real estate transaction where the inspection's gone bad. Okay? So you, Clint, do you mind coming up here? Will you play this out with me?
Sure.
And anybody else willing to come and play with Clint? He's going to be the agent. Can I have someone be the client? Crystal.
Fun to play with.
Crystal, come and play because you get emotional. Okay.
This will be nice to me.
Okay, let's play emotions. Let's play with our emotions. This will be fun. Okay, so Crystal, you just got the news that the inspection came back and it needs a new roof or what's even something more.
Am I the agent or the client?
You're the client.
Okay.
Oh, wait. So, Clint, you got the inspection report back and it needs a new roof or let's say like there's a mold everywhere or something really horrible. Like the house is really moldy. The house is really moldy, Clint.
Right.
Okay, I want to see, you've got to really like tune into this. Like, I'm going to be the inspector in this situation. Let's just play this out.
Okay.
Okay, hey Clint.
So are we doing the walkthrough? And she's the client?
No, we're not doing the walkthrough. You're going to call her.
Yeah,
okay.
You're going to call her. You're going to call her.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Clint, I have some not so great news about the inspection. There's actually mold everywhere in the house. Black mold, it's like growing on everything. I can't believe you missed it as the agent.
Take that.
So, good luck dealing with your client.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Okay, now what are you feeling right now?
Anxiety, a little bit of pressure.
He's scared. He knows he has to
Anxiety.
call me.
Now I have to call Crystal.
Fear, okay, anxiety. Okay, let's find that on here. Where's the anxiety and the fear? Fear is right here at the bottom. Do you guys see that? 22, fear. Okay, you have a little bit of fear and anxiety about calling Crystal, right?
Mhm.
Like, I have to tell her this is uncomfortable, right?
And I didn't spot it before. It's all my fault.
It's all my fault. Ooh, shame. Yeah, there's some, shame is actually the lowest. I don't know why it's not on here, but shame is the lowest emotional vibration, just so you know. So don't shame yourself. But anyway, shame is the lowest, but fear and grief. Okay, so you're feeling like, oh my goodness, I did this. I can't believe I didn't spot it. Now they're gonna lose their earnest money, right? Because it's non-refundable earnest money in all houses. So you're feeling some fear.
Yeah.
Okay, so before you call Crystal, we're gonna work through the scale of emotions, and we're gonna work through it with you. Okay?
Okay, good, because I already know where I'm at, and I'm not even.
Awesome. So you keep that anger.
That lava's boiling.
Don't lose.
Don't swear.
Don't
Try not to.
Don't lose your anger yet, because we're gonna need it in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, Clint. Look at the scale. What we're gonna do is move you upwards. So you're at fear. You're at that 22. Let's move up to 21. Do you see how that's right to the sides?
Yep.
That insecurity and guilt and unworthiness.
Mhm.
So that's, you're going to acknowledge that. And you actually just said it. You naturally moved up. Okay, you said it's all my fault,
Yeah.
right? So what would be the benefit in acknowledging that? Does anybody know?
Well, I think it helps move that energy out.
Exactly. It moves it out. So if you were to just go from fear to joy, you would actually compress all of this in your body. And then it gets stuck. That's how people get stuck emotions, and they actually get really bad health problems.
That seems impossible. That's
Yeah.
probably why I'm unhealthy.
And
Because I just do that.
no. So, and it's somewhat impossible. Like, some people can flip like from here to here, and that's okay if you're healthy enough to really flip your emotions, but most people need to move up. So, okay, 21, you're
I
insecure
also
now.
feel like if you don't own it, you can't change it.
If you don't own it, you can't change it, right? 100% responsibility, for sure.
He's just going right all up. He's all the way up to
Oh,
12
shoot,
now.
sorry.
No, 20, okay, jealousy. You just think of any way in this situation that you're jealous. Just any way.
I wish I was that inspector that I could just be like, hey.
Yeah, I wish
There
I
you
was the
go.
inspector.
There you
I
go,
wish I
good
was the
luck.
other agent. I wish, good, jealousy, perfect. Okay, now move to hatred. What are you just angry and raged about right now?
Oh, I hate that stupid mold.
I need some more anger. Like, get into it.
That's my, that's as
Choking on water.
hokey as I get there, sorry.
Clint doesn't have a lot of rage,
My
so it's hard for
rage
him
is
to tune
built
into it. Hard to tune into Clint's inner rage, but
It really
hey,
is.
let's do some coaching on that, because remember I said men's anger and rage actually creates. Let's do that.
Yeah.
No,
Let's work
anyway.
on that.
Okay, so you hate the stupid mold. Revenge. How do you want to get revenge in this situation? What did you say?
Spread mold everywhere.
Spread mold everywhere.
It's doing pretty good on its own.
It's doing pretty good on its own.
Revenge. Kill the mold.
Kill the mold. Oh, see, he's so nice. No,
He
like,
is so nice. I
egg
would
the
have said.
inspector. Egg the inspector.
Right.
Egg
Right.
the inspector.
Right, yeah.
TP.
Yeah, go
Let's do
and
this.
go and egg its truck, do whatever. Like get into that revenge energy. Okay, anger. That's kind of like hatred, but it's a little less violent, right?
Yeah.
So what are you angry about?
Angry that I didn't see it before. I'm angry that I didn't already have this conversation with my client, that this is a possibility.
Perfect. Good job. Okay, discouraged. What are you discouraged about?
Oh. Yeah, losing the deal.
Losing the deal.
Possibly falling out of contract, knowing how hard it is to go under contract on another house.
Right. That's very discouraging in this market, right? Okay,
Yeah.
feel that for a minute. You feel it in your gut, like, oh,
Yeah.
dang it. Yeah, see, just like feel into that. When you move up each scale, make sure to just acknowledge where it's at in your body, where you're feeling it. Allow it to move, and it will move out. You can literally do this process in like 10 minutes and be like back up to joy. So, okay, blame. Who do you want to blame?
The inspector.
Inspector? What about you? Want to blame you?
Yep.
Want to blame your clients for wanting this stupid house?
Yeah. Why did you pick the 1978?
Go there, Claire.
Crystal's terrible. She actually wants this?
Right. Okay, what are you worried about?
I'm worried that we can't find a solution, and I'm worried about losing the client. I'm worried about losing the relationship, mostly.
Worried about the earnest money being lost. Worried about, there's a lot of things to worry about, right?
Yep.
Whew, take a deep breath with that one. That's right in the solar plexus. That's your power center in the middle of your body, and it will fight with you. So just breathe into it, let it move out. Okay, doubt. What are you doubting? Kind of the same thing as worry, but a little bit like, I doubt they're gonna fix this.
Yeah.
That type of stuff.
I doubt we're going to be able to come to a solution where everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
doubt if it's everywhere that we can get rid of all of it. I don't know.
Hey, disappointment. How are you disappointed in this?
A little bit in myself.
Yeah. And in the house and in the clients.
Yeah.
How are you overwhelmed right now?
With all my emotions.
Yeah.
You're making me feel things.
I picked on Clint. Thank you, Clint, for being a good sport. All right. How are you frustrated or impatient or irritated? This is when most people act, okay? They get frustrated and they just go out and make the phone call, or they go out and do something that they regret. So it's important to not do that. Just so you guys know, when you're working through a downward spiral, whenever you're anywhere from boredom to fear, do not act, okay? So these are things we're playing out with yourself or with someone you trust, like this situation, right? You can work it out, but you do not act. You don't actually go and egg their car, right? This is internal work, okay?
Tire.
That's
Right,
where I went wrong.
That's where you went wrong. You can have fun, like, in your mind, and you can play it out so you can really feel the emotion and get it to move, and you don't shame yourself for wanting to TP their house or whatever, right? But you only play it out in your emotional state. You do not act. Does everyone understand that clearly? This is internal work. This is external. So we'll talk about that in a second. Okay. Frustration. What are you going to do? What do you want to do because you're so frustrated? What do you want to do?
I want to no longer use that inspector.
Yeah.
I want to,
So irritated with them.
yeah.
You want to call and yell at them maybe and just use your irritation and impatience to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frustrated that he just dropped it on me and was like, yep, peace
Good
out.
luck.
Yeah.
Okay, pessimistic. How are you pessimistic?
Kind of those same things, like that might not work out, we might lose the earnest money, getting into another contract on another place is really difficult.
Yeah, they're never going to buy a house.
Yeah,
I just wasted my time. That
I don't like
yeah.
that.
Right. Okay, and then boredom. Now you should be a little bit bored with this. Like,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
There's-
So how are you bored with it?
I don't know, we just went
Hate
through a
being on the
lot.
spot.
A lot of emotion we just went through.
Yeah, that was a lot of emotion to work out in like, what, 3 minutes or something? Okay, take a deep breath and just like settle. You're kind of like in a neutral state. Now we get to get up to contentment. Where you're like, okay, it's actually just okay. That's just a situation. Okay, that's the neutral boredom contentment. This is just a situation.
All
Now-
this before he calls me.
Yes, all this. Did you guys
Now
hear
can
that?
appreciate the phone call a
But
little
it's
bit,
so
Crystal.
true.
All of this.
It's so true.
All of this before he makes the phone call. Remember, no making calls, no acting at all until you move through your emotions, okay? No calling your client because you're irritated and frustrated. You don't do that. You get to neutral, then you call, okay? All right, so you're in contentment. Find some way to be hopeful about the situation, and then you can call your client and you're going to tell her. Good luck.
All right.
What's something you can be hopeful about?
That they don't have to live in the mold. That we found it before we ever even
Beautiful.
bought the place.
Good job, Clint. That was amazing. Did you guys notice how he just switched that to a good scenario? That was amazing. Okay, now call Crystal and you're gonna tell her. And you're gonna talk about that end. You're not gonna talk about the other end, okay? You're gonna only talk about the hopefulness you just found.
Okay.
That's what you're at now, right?
Yeah, because that's where you're at emotionally. So go ahead and make her a phone call. Tell her what happened.
Ring, ring.
Hello, this is Crystal.
Hey, Crystal, it's Clint. How are you doing?
I'm good. How about you? What did the inspector say?
Oh, hey, good question. So we found out that the house is filled with mold. And the great thing is we found it before we actually closed. And we can find out what we need to do next now.
Are you kidding? I'm so freaked out. I'm scared to death. Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna find another house again. What are we gonna do about this? Oh my gosh, what? Are you sure it's mold? Should we have a second opinion?
Great questions. I haven't got to that emotion yet.
All right, that was perfect. You know when
You just worked through the whole thing yourself.
No, you're staying. You're staying.
Oh, I'm staying.
This is a real life scenario we're
Here we
working
go.
through. Okay, what did Crystal just do? You were at Hopeful, right?
Uh-huh.
And you told her, and what did she do? She spiraled
She was
down.
Spiraling, yeah.
She spiraled down. So your job as the professional is to stop that downward spiral, okay? You don't want them to just go crazy down. You want to move them up.
And
The
with that,
emotions.
don't ever tell your clients, calm down.
No,
Don't ever say that.
No.
Oh my gosh, don't ever say
Well,
that.
bring it down
Do
a notch,
not
Crystal.
calm down.
Don't say that. I said that. It's good
bring it
though.
down enough. So, do you think it's good to tell your clients to calm down?
I don't say you need to calm down. I say we all just need to calm down.
Okay, that's
Make
a
it a
good.
we.
We is a good way to approach that. But I'm going to teach you just a little bit better way to approach it. She just got pinged, right, with all these fears, okay? So a good way to approach this, he just moved through that. So now he can meet her exactly where she's at, but move her up, right?
Mhm.
So she's like, oh my gosh.
This zone right here.
Yeah, worry, doubt,
anger.
anger. So the way that Clint could do that is be like, I understand that you could be angry. You just acknowledge. Then she'll actually probably say something else and he'll, yes, I get that. Yes. Until she moves herself out of it. Does that make sense?
There's
Okay.
Tyler.
So he can actually say his conversation. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he can, Tyler, come in and talk. Okay, so, say, I'm so frustrated right now, and you can help her.
I'm so frustrated right now. I don't know what to do.
I totally get where you're coming from. Sorry, where were we?
I'm over here.
Frustrated.
I'm over here.
You're frustrated.
You're frustrated.
Okay.
So say, I totally understand that this could be, feel very, like, what's a word for pessimistic? Overwhelming, yeah. So this can feel very
I
overwhelming.
understand this can feel very overwhelming.
And then let her respond to that. Because most people will in a real life situation. Yeah, and then they maybe will cry.
Right. But I was trying to hold back the tears already, but whatever.
Good job, good job.
Clint, what do you think we should do? I really want this house, but I am terrified of mold.
Say, I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed.
I'm
That's the
so
emotion.
disappointed. Like, I really thought like this was a good house.
You and me both. And the great thing is that we have options.
Okay, like what?
We can blow it up. Or
Hey, the land is great. Blow it up and build what you want.
this is an ideal location. Do you have a trailer? No.
Actually, that wasn't too bad because that brings laughter into it. So
No,
that's
this-
fine. Because
I
they know that
actually-
you're kidding.
No, I really like to bring in things like that just as a joke because it really does bring people.
Yeah.
Well, and it kind of
But-
matches their emotion. So
Yeah.
you're kind of like, she wasn't in anger, but if you could have said, we could just cry ourselves to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say something like that and people will laugh at that and then they'll be like, I probably will, you know. but you can match it with humor. Like,
Yeah.
this is one thing we could do. We could go
Humor's
and
good.
cry and get
And
ice cream.
she
Tell them
brought
that we
up
could go
one-
cry and get ice cream. I know you're discouraged.
She brought up one thing in her initial stuff, which was getting a second opinion, which we can totally do that. The other option is we get a professional in there that does mold remediation. We find out how extensive it is, and then we can make a good decision on where we go from there.
Okay, and is that gonna, like, do I have to pay for that or the seller?
That's something we definitely need to talk about.
We
Okay.
can negotiate.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is a negotiable thing.
Do you think that we can do this? Like, is it gonna be okay?
Yes.
Remember what you said about everyone finds the perfect house.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah. Well, that's,
This is,
that's
she's
a
in
really-
contentment
she-
and hopeful right now, so
I
this is
know
when you
that
can
she
bring your
wants it.
optimism in, so you can say like, you know what, we're gonna try to make this house work. But if it doesn't, we're gonna find you the perfect place.
Yeah, this is kind of where I would say, you know, let's make sure that it's the right place for you. And if it's not, let's find that place.
Okay,
Perfect.
okay.
But she's already said that she loves this house and she really wanted to make it work,
Of
so.
course she does, but do you see how you just worked through the scale with her and then she got to like hopeful and it's like, okay, great, we're gonna do everything we can to make this work. But if it doesn't, we're gonna find you a great house.
Yeah.
Then she stays in optimism instead of like, what if it doesn't work, you know?
Yeah.
You brought in a solution,
Yeah,
like, if it doesn't, we're gonna find you the perfect house,
yeah.
okay? And you guys did that so perfectly. Now you're in optimism. You could play on it and move all the way up till you're in joy. Like you could actually just move up the scale until you're both feeling joyful. But it's okay to land anywhere in the upward spiral. You can even just land at contentment, okay? Most people don't like to stop there. They like to move at least into hopeful. But you can land anywhere. So, any questions? Oh, give them a round of applause. You guys were amazing. That was seriously amazing.
You're a great client.
Good job, you guys. Okay, any questions about that?
No, is this a 2-hour class?
No, we're about done.
Okay.
What time is it?
11:20.
It's 11:20. Okay, perfect. We will
I
get
don't wanna
that
rush
done.
you, I was just someone
So,
was asking them.
We are